This is the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me out here. And that's saying something because I live in a place where strange things are just part of the landscape. I live in a border area town that most people would call the middle of nowhere. We're right on the edge of the state, halfway between farmland and wildland. There's one main road, a couple side streets, a church, a tiny grocery store that closes too early, and after that it's just fields, tree lines, and old houses that look like they gave up a long time ago. So yeah, it's quiet. It's old. It's not flashy. But it's home. The night this happened, the weather was already in a bad mood. All afternoon the sky had been that heavy gray that makes you feel like you're walking under a lid. By evening the wind had picked up, doing that hollow whistling thing through the gaps in the barns and the old sheds. You could smell the storm before you saw it, that kind of thick air where you know thunder is on the way. I've got a small animal shelter on my property. Nothing big, just some goats, a couple of sheep, and a stubborn old donkey that thinks he owns the place. When the wind starts to howl out here, I always go out to double-check the latches. If a door blows open in the middle of the night, you're spending hours chasing animals in the dark. I've done it before. Once is enough. So that evening I grabbed my jacket and went out with just a little flashlight. The yard was already dim, and the tree line in the distance looked like one solid black wall. The wind was pushing long waves through the tall grass around the house, and you could see flashes of lightning way off on the horizon, still far enough away that you didn't hear the thunder. Yet I walked to the shelter, checked one stall at a time. The animals were restless. They always get twitchy before a big storm. The goats kept pacing and bumping each other. The donkey kept lifting his head like he was sniffing something on the air. I was halfway through checking the last latch when I heard it. A voice, high, thin, and distant. Just one short sound, like a child calling out from somewhere near the woods. I remember freezing with my hand still on the metal latch. My first thought was, there shouldn't be any kids out here. The nearest family with children lives 2 roads over, and they don't let them run around after dark, especially not on nights like this. The logical part of my brain kicked in and said, it's the wind. You're hearing the wind push through something. I stood there, holding my breath, waiting to see if it would happen again. For a few seconds, there was nothing, just the whistle through the trees and the shuffle of animals behind me. Then I heard it again. This time it was clearer. Still faint, still carried by the wind, but it wasn't just a random sound. It had a shape. It sounded like someone calling a word or a name from deep inside the tree line. I turned toward the woods. There's a patch of forest about 100 yards from my shelter. During the day, you can see pretty far into it, but at night, it just turns into one solid black mass. Now, with the storm rolling in, it looked even worse, like the darkness was thicker there than anywhere else. I clicked my little flashlight on and aimed it toward the trees, but the beam barely reached the first row of trunks. It lit up some low branches and a bit of grass, but nothing beyond that. What really gave me a bad feeling was my animals. The goats had gone quiet, completely still. The donkey had his head turned toward the woods, ears pinned back, staring that way like he was waiting for something. I stood there and argued with myself for a second. It's probably just some sound carrying from town. No, it came from that direction. Maybe a fox or a coyote making a weird noise. That didn't sound like any animal you know. Do you really want to walk toward the woods right now? Another flash of lightning lit up the sky behind the trees, turning them into black silhouettes for a moment. I didn't see anything out of place, but I did get that feeling you get when someone's looking at you from behind a window. I don't know why I decided to walk out there. Curiosity, I guess. Or maybe it was that stupid human instinct of, if I can see what it is, I'll feel better. So I left the animals locked up and started walking toward the tree line. I turned the flashlight off after a few steps. It wasn't doing me much good, and honestly, if there was something out there, I didn't really want to be the only glowing dot in an open field. The lightning was getting closer now, flashing every 20-30 seconds, just enough to show me where the ground was and where the trees began. The grass brushed against my jeans. The wind was stronger out in the open, tugging at my jacket and pushing my hair into my face. Every time the lightning flashed, the field lit up in this flat white light, and for half a second everything was crystal clear. The fence, the shed, the opening between the trees. Before dropping back into darkness like someone flipped a switch, I kept going. When I reached the edge of the woods, I stopped. The first line of trees loomed over me, swaying gently. The ground inside was patchy, with some bare dirt and piles of old leaves. It smelled like damp earth and dry bark. I stepped in anyway. The sound changed immediately. Out in the field, the wind had been loud and open. In the trees, it broke into a low hiss, weaving between trunks and branches. It felt more contained, like it was circling around me instead of just blowing past another flash. This time the lightning lit up deeper into the woods. And that's when I saw them. Figures, not shadows, not tricks of the light. Actual shapes, humanoid, standing in a loose circle about 30 or 40 feet ahead of me. They were spaced evenly, all facing inward, like they were gathered around something on the ground. I couldn't make out details. No faces, no clothes, just the outlines of bodies against the sudden bright white of the lightning. One looked taller than the others. One had its head tilted in a strange way, like it was listening. Then darkness again. I stopped breathing without realizing it. My brain went into overdrive. Are those people? Why would anyone be out here in a storm, in the middle of the woods, standing in a circle? Is this some kind of weird gathering? A prank? Did they hear you walking? Did they see the light from your flashlight earlier? Part of me wanted to call out, just a simple, "Hey," or "Who's there?" But something about the way they'd been standing made my stomach twist. There was no shuffling, no talking, no nervous movement, just stillness. That didn't feel like people hanging out in the woods. It felt like something deliberate. I decided to wait for the next flash. I told myself, if they're gone, you go home. If they're still there, you run. Either way, you don't say anything. So I stood there, barely inside the tree line, hands at my sides, eyes locked on where I thought I'd seen them. The thunder rolled a few seconds later, deep and low. And then, another burst of light. This time, the forest lit up from a different angle, but I could see the same clearing clearly. There was nothing there. No circle, no figures, just a patch of ground covered in dead leaves and a few fallen branches. It didn't make sense. They hadn't had time to move. I would have heard them walking, breaking twigs, brushing past trunks. Instead, the woods were nearly silent. That silence felt worse than any noise. I stood there a second too long. In that second, the entire mood of the forest changed. Before, the wind had been the main sound. After, I started to hear something else. Movement, not far from me, maybe 10, 15 feet away in the dark. It was subtle at first, a soft crunching like weight shifting on dry leaves, then a low rustling. Then another distinct sound. The snap of a thin branch under something heavy. It was coming from ahead and to my left. Then another sound answered from my right. Whatever had been standing in that circle, whether it was actually people or not, it wasn't out in the middle of the clearing anymore. Now it was moving, spreading out, and it was definitely moving toward me. I took a small step back, trying not to make noise. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The instinct to turn and run was screaming at me, but another part of my brain said, if you run, you'll trip. If you fall, you don't know what's behind you. The sounds got closer. It wasn't like regular footsteps, not the steady pattern you hear when a person walks. It was uneven, like whatever it was didn't care where its feet landed. Dry branches cracked, leaves scraped. I heard something larger brush against a trunk with a dull thud. That broke my hesitation. I turned around and started walking as fast as I could toward the edge of the trees. Head down, arms close to my sides. I tried to keep it controlled. I thought, don't sprint, don't panic, just move. Then something behind me stepped on something big, maybe a fallen log, and the crack echoed much louder than anything before. That's when I ran. I threw caution out the window and just bolted. Branches slapped against my arms and legs. My foot caught on a root, and I stumbled, caught my balance, kept going. The wind hit my face harder as I reached the edge of the woods and broke out into the open field. The ground was uneven and damp from the first drops of rain, and I almost went down a couple of times. Behind me, I could still hear it. Those disorganized, heavy impacts on the forest floor, like several things moving quickly but not trying to be quiet anymore. I didn't look back. Not once. I had one clear thought in my mind. Get to the house. Get the door closed. Lightning flashed again, lighting up the field for me. For a split second I saw my house, the shelter, the fence line, all sharp and white and unreal. For that same split second, my brain tried to check the tree line in my peripheral vision. To see if anything had stepped out, I stopped myself. I didn't want that image stuck in my head forever. I reached the yard, my lungs burning, legs aching, and sprinted the last few yards to the front door. My hands were shaking so badly that I fumbled the handle twice before I finally got it open. I slammed the door shut, threw the deadbolt, and just stood there in the dark of my entryway, chest heaving, ears ringing. Inside, the house felt too quiet. The storm hadn't fully hit yet, so there was this strange pause. Like the world was holding its breath, I went to the window that faces the field but kept the lights off. I pulled the curtain back just a centimeter and looked out. I couldn't see anything clearly. The clouds had swallowed the moon, and the only light was from distant lightning flickers and the faint glow from town far away. The field was a flat, dark shape. The tree line looked normal, no moving shadows, no strange shapes between the trunks, but the feeling didn't go away. You know that sensation when you walk into a room and someone's already there, and you can tell even before you see them? That's what it felt like, but reversed, like something was out there, just inside the edge of the trees, watching the house. The storm finally broke. A minute later, rain hit the roof in heavy sheets. Thunder rolled overhead. Every time the sky flashed white, I stared at the woods, looking for silhouettes, for anything that would prove I wasn't just losing it. I didn't see anything. Eventually, I forced myself to step away from the window. I checked the doors twice. Then I sat in the kitchen with all the lights on, not really doing anything, just listening to the storm and waiting for that feeling to fade. It didn't. Not that night. I didn't tell a lot of people about it. Out here, if you start talking too much about things in the woods, you either get the wrong kind of attention or the wrong kind of jokes. I don't know if what I saw in that lightning flash were actual people or not. Maybe I caught some weird illusion of branches and trunks and my brain turned it into a circle of figures. Maybe the sounds I heard were trees shifting, fallen limbs rolling, wind funneling through the right gap at the right time. All of that is possible. But I also know this. I've lived here a long time. I know what this land sounds like during storms. I know the difference between wind and footsteps, between branches creaking and something heavy moving on the ground. What I heard that night didn't sound like the land moving. It sounded like things walking. Things that didn't care if I heard them once I'd already stepped too close. Since then, I still live here. I still walk that field. I still check my animals at night. I'm not scared to exist in this place. It's my home. But when the weather turns and the sky goes that strange color, and the wind starts to whistle through the boards just right, I make a different choice. I stay inside. I shut the doors. And I let whatever's in those woods do whatever it does, without me trying to see it. Because out here, far from the city, you learn something simple. Not every voice in the dark is calling for help. And not every shape you see in the lightning wants you to look twice. If you want more stories from out here, you can subscribe. And thank you for giving me the chance to tell you another one.